Chris, 1 week. Give me a name. Who you taking at number 8? Give me 2 right now. Who you taking at 8?
From right here, Las Vegas, Nevada. Shout out to Las Vegas, 702, by the way. Jalen Walker. If we're staying at 8. We're staying at 8.
We'll discuss a little bit more. Dan Morgan's got to hit this draft, Chris. Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Chris Lea coming to you all the way from Vegas. It's WrestleMania week, but you know what? That's a different conversation for another time. But Chris, by the way, folks, in the comments, we're 1 week away. You've heard us talk about it. You've heard plenty of people talk about it. If the Panthers stay at 8, I know there's the whole training back deal, but I'm talking if we're at 8, who do you want them to take? Who do you think they should take? Be realistic. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, likely not going to be there. Who is going to be that person? Chris, I'll give you my pick here in just a little bit, but I was thinking about this coming draft. 9 picks. I actually heard Dangle Jeremiah of the NFL Network on a podcast with Ryan Russillo of The Ringer just earlier this week say, this isn't necessarily a draft where you're going to get a bunch of stars, but this is a draft where you can find a lot of starters. And with 9 picks, Dan Morgan has got to find some starters and some dudes that can contribute right from day one.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it a lot over the last few weeks as far as like the depth of this draft where you can get a potential first rounder type of player maybe in the second or third round just because of how deep this draft is, specifically at certain positions, defensive line, edge rusher, also running back. There's a lot of running backs in this draft, a lot of tight ends in this draft, and the Panthers just so happen to need players at some of those positions. It'll be great if this was a safety deep draft because, man, we need some safeties really bad. But you are 100% hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of opportunity here to make this draft a few years from now look like one of the turning points of the Carolina Panthers when it comes down to like going from a losing franchise to potentially a winning franchise. We talked about this before where you had that, 2-year stretch where there's no Cam, there's no Greg, there's no Luke, there's no Thomas. And then all of a sudden later on, there's no DJ, there's no Christian, there's no Brian Burns. Mm-hmm. And just in a few short years, a nice core that you have built is gone. We're starting to build that core. We have that with J.C. Horn, Derrick Brown for sure. Looks like Bryce will be a part of that. And now you have a chance to really make this a lot bigger and add to that core. So hopefully the Carolina Panthers can start doing some winning in the next 3 to 5 years.
This just
can't I'm talking about big winning and playoff.
Yeah, big winning. Yeah, not like, hey, look, we're 9-8. No, we're talking like big winning.
That. I'm talking about getting to the NFC Championship games.
I mean, average drafting will get you average results, which is 8-9, 9-8. Dan Morgan can't afford to have an average draft. If you're trying to build this team through the draft and build it right way long term, you have to be better than what you were last year. Because let's be honest, 6 of the 7 guys that you drafted were on the roster, but Jaden Crumedy as the 6th round pick was hurt much of the year. You just don't really know what you have in Jaden Crumedy. Jonathon Brooks, a lost year last year, and it looks like a lost year this year. Xavier Legette still has a lot of room to grow. We saw flashes, injuries and stuff kind of built up. Room to grow for sure. Left people wanting a lot more than what we saw last year. Trevin Wallace looks like a good dude. Shaw Smith-Wade looks like he potentially is a really good value pick in the 5th round. And then Jadeveon Sanders, we saw those flashes of potential, but then after that neck injury against Kansas City, we didn't really see much of anything from JT Sanders after that. This year, with 9 picks, you got to find at least 3 guys that can contribute, at least as starters on day one, and find other guys that can chip in some way. I'm talking day one. Like that 8th overall pick, right? We should be able to acknowledge them right there as a starter at week 1, Chris. Acknowledge them as starter. And it might start with that number 8th pick. To me, if Mason Graham's there, that's the dude I'm taking, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. If he's not there and Jalen Walker's there, I'm okay for that as well. But in the second round, you might have to move up 6 or 7 spots. But if Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame, is available right there, he's not going to be an all-pro player, but he's someone that you can probably rely on to start for you for 8 years as a free safety. That's the kind of guy you got to get in a draft, and this one as well. Like, that's the kind of guy that you have to go get. Those are the players that Dan Morgan has got to hit on, because last year, overall, the results hit and miss. You saw some good, saw some low, but overall relatively average, probably compared to what it potentially could have been. Again, the potential is there, but we have to be more than just potential. Dan Morgan and Dave Canales have talked about they want to develop. You can develop stars too. Like, they can come in and be starters and stars right away and still develop and grow to be more. It can't just be, well, we can mold this guy over the next 3 years and they can be really good. It has to be more than that.
So I think you make a lot of great points right there, especially when it comes down to last year's draft. It felt like going into last year's draft, that's what they were looking at.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like they wanted to have guys that, okay, it may take them some time, but in the next 2 to 3 years, we expect them to be here, right? It doesn't feel right here.
Right here.
You know what I'm saying? Right here.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like that is their tone heading into this draft.
Correct.
It does feel like, especially listening to Dan Morgan in his press conference this week, it feels like they want guys now that because I think they needed to see what they had with the guys they signed. They realized, okay, there's some guys we had to move off quick that we signed last year, some guys that were holdovers that we just moved off of, and now we have holes to fill. We got some guys that we like that we signed, but we realized that we need to make sure that this is a young defense, specifically on defense. Mm-hmm. We like a lot of our pieces on offense, and we feel like other pieces on offense will grow. This defense needs to be a lot better day one when we first step foot on the field. So it feels as if they're not going into this draft looking just for the guys who may hit, later on. Like I might buy Apple stock, today. It's at a high price, right? However, I know that in 4 years, unless the whole country crashes, let's not get into politics and all that right now, then Apple's not going to crash, right?
Yeah.
Then okay, that's what you're looking for. You want something that's going to pop day one. Like, you enter it at this price, and then on day one, it's going to jump like $100. That's what we need in this draft. So. We need those quick hitters, and it feels as if that's what Dan Morgan is going after. And whether it's Mason Graham, whether it's Jalen Walker, or others, there's so many of those guys who can. It feels like if they have their heads on straight, they can contribute immediately.
And you can find guys that can impact you in some way, shape, or form in the middle rounds of this year's draft as well. Mm-hmm. For, again, a name that I keep bringing up is Brashard Smith. Chris, I know you talked about so much last year, the role that Miles Sanders played last year. Yeah. We saw Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard on the field together. The role that he played, where he can line up in the slot, maybe motion into the backfield. You don't know what he's going to do. You love that role. I agree with you. 100% like the role. Just the Miles Sanders didn't necessarily, with the money and everything that it cost, it just didn't necessarily fit in that regard. But the role still exists. That's where I say a guy like Brashard Smith, the running back out of SMU, who formerly was a wide receiver at Miami before transferring to SMU, can fill that role and obviously do it on the cheap end if he's going to be a 4th or 5th round pick. Those are kinds of guys that you can find that can make impacts for you right away. It doesn't have to be, again, 4th, 5th round guys that have to be, hey, I'm going to play 60 snaps and, tote the rock 20 times. That's not what you need to do. You can still find guys that can fill specific needs and roles for you going forward. Maybe there's a guy in the 4th round as well. You have 2 4ths and 3 5ths. Hey, this dude can just burn downfield as a wide receiver. Can just go. Just sprint downfield. Might catch 2 passes a game, but one of them potentially could be like a 60-yarder. You got to have that guy that could be a threat. If you can find that guy too, go get him. We talked about, Chris, this team needs some damn speed. Make it happen.
Here's something else that I thought was interesting coming from Dan Morgan's press conference. I guess I hadn't thought about this because their offensive line is pretty much intact from what it was last year.
Yeah.
I came away realizing that he's looking for another offensive lineman. because
Yeah.
he made
It's something we
mention,
haven't
he's
talked
like,
about.
we hadn't really talked about this, but he made mention to like who Taylor Moton was for the team, what he means to the team, and that type of thing. And he hopes that he's here for years to come. But he does realize that, you know, one, there's a decision to be made on Icky, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
coming up by the first weekend in May, I believe, right? To give him his 5th-year option or not.
It's a couple weeks away.
Then you got to make a decision on what the future is for Taylor Moton.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two guys, two of the tackles you really got to, you know, think about if they're going to possibly be on the roster next season or not. And next season meaning 2026, not 2025. They're going to be here for 2025. But so the idea that they may draft a tackle, whether it's right tackle, left tackle, swing tackle, within the first few rounds, is something I hadn't even really considered because of the roster being intact. But that's something that I came away realizing, like, oh, he's really considering this, because maybe in his mind, between Icky and Taylor, one of those two may not be here in 2026.
Yeah. Or both.
Or both.
Or both. That is a real possibility. Or both. To me, I would probably go ahead and pick up Icky's 5th-year option. That's me. Because that way you still have cost control for him for next year. Again, this is going to be year 4. That way you still have that. That way at least you have that intact. We saw growth from Icky Ekwonu this past year. It's a lot better than what he did his sophomore year. 2nd year in the league, you know what I meant. But we still saw growth from him. There is still room to grow. He's still a really young player. But yeah, the Taylor Moton on the right side, entering the last year of his contract, you don't know what the future is going to look like for him, being now 31 years old. Last year was the first time we actually ever saw Taylor Moton get hurt. Like, let's keep that in mind. Like, if the injuries start to pile up again this year, then it might make the decision a little bit easier. But yeah, offensive line, we haven't really talked about it being in play, but it certainly is justifiable. 100% justifiable. If, let's say, in the 3rd round, they find a tackle that they feel like it can start on the right side in the future, I get it. I totally get it.
What we've talked about before was center, because we didn't know what the future of that would be. And so I would also be interested to see if they feel like with 9 picks, maybe they can come away with a tackle and a center, which would be very telling as to what they feel about their current construction of the offensive line. That means that possibly, depending on also where they pick these guys, like if it's a 7th round pick, then, you know, I'm not really worried about it. But if you get, like, in the first maybe 4 rounds, a center and a tackle, you're not having faith that Taylor or Icky or even Austin Corbett, 2 of the 3, it won't be here for 2026.
Yeah.
So that is something I am definitely paying attention to after hearing Dan Morgan talk.
Austin Corbett only signed a 1-year deal to come back. That's the key. Again, keep that in mind. It's only a 1-year deal for Austin Corbett. You know, I get it. I totally get it, because you still have Josh Nijman as your backup tackle right now. You did bring back Brady Christensen. Maybe if you draft a tackle that Josh Nijman gets left go. I mean, that's a reality of this league. You know, it's just your replacement is going to eventually come. It's just kind of how it is. Either you're replacing somebody or someone's replacing you. It's just how the league works. So maybe that's the plan.
Circle of life.
It is the circle of life.
Horrible.
It's the circle of life. You know what? It's okay.
It's the desert, man. It's the desert out here. You know, that's why I'm keep drinking water. Everything's dry out here.
A little dry out here. A little dry out here. But Chris, I know we got to wrap things up here. Again, 1 week from the draft. The plan is, whomever they draft at 8, the plan is at least one of us, if not both of us, Chris, will be live on YouTube next week. So, folks, stay locked in. Make sure you are subscribed, because I think, Chris, the plan is roughly around once the 6th pick is in and the Jets are on the clock at number 7, we'll go live, kind of react, see what the board is looking like. And then once the Panthers are on the clock, we'll react live all right there in the moment. So come enjoy the draft with us on Thursday next week. Hey, you know what? We'll be there to react to it as well. One thing to keep in mind, if some of the offensive linemen fall, Armand Membu falls, Will Campbell, if those guys fall to number 8, San Francisco has 11 picks in this draft, and they also pick 11th. So they have a ton of picks to work with. They need to rebuild their offensive line. They have a lot of holes to fill. And if they don't want the Chicago Bears to take one of those offensive linemen that they really like, well, guess where you're jumping to potentially? Numero 8. 8 to 11, I'm okay with that.
You could have said Ocho, but that's cool. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Leave your thoughts in the comments, folks. Who do you want at number 8?
Bro, 8.
The Ocho. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.